Remnant 2 has often been called Dark Souls with guns, but I think that's misleading. After finishing Remnant 2 in only 10 hours, I was pretty shocked how short the game was. The game is getting mostly positive reviews, and I can imagine that people will want to try it out, especially if you heard that it's like a Souls game. But I'm here to break down what Remnant 2 really is to end all the confusion. So, should you play Remnant 2? Well, let's find out. Now, I typically start with story, but I'm jumping straight into gameplay this time around. Remnant 2 is an action RPG. You would choose a difficulty with only 3 being available from the start. You should play the game on Survivor, as each difficulty increases enemy health and damage, plus you gain more XP. Thing is, Survivor isn't easy mode like I assumed, it's actually normal. You have several different classes to choose from, and most of these you've seen in other RPGs. The good thing about the class system in Remnant 2 is that you aren't bound to them. You can switch between classes as long as you have them unlocked. And later on in the game, you can even have 2 classes at the same time. You level up each class by defeating enemies, and as you defeat more enemies and level up, you will be able to get new abilities for your class. Now, on Survivor difficulty, class synergy won't matter as much, but the goal is to learn each class and pair them together to become stronger. You have different traits you can invest in that are attached to you no matter what class you are. You can only upgrade a trait by finding books of knowledge around each map. There is much more to the RPG mechanics that I won't deep dive into. But you do have weapon upgrades, weapon mods, mutations for weapons, rings and relics to help shape your build, and much more to experiment with. For anyone that's not into RPGs, it can sound like a lot, but Remnant 2 is beginner friendly. Everything is clearly explained to the player on how things work, so nobody should be relying on charts to figure out this stuff. Now, the shooting itself is great. Enemies react to where they are shot, which is very important because enemies in this game will rush the player, so shooting them in the leg can really be helpful as it will slow them down and they can't charge you anymore. The guns overall felt great and sound very punchy, giving me great feedback anytime I pulled the trigger. There is melee combat, and at best it just works. You can make a melee focused build, which is what I use, but clearly guns are the focus here. Now, a lot of people have called this game Dark Souls with guns, but people also assume that the game would be similar to Borderlands, as both are RPGs and shooters. In reality, it's neither one of those. Anyone intimidated by Souls difficulty will not have to worry about playing Remnant 2. Anyone looking for tons of loot drops like Borderlands isn't going to get that here either. Remnant 2 is just an RPG that uses guns, but its gimmick is how everything comes together. You see, Remnant 2 is a short game. 10 hours just to beat the game works great for anyone wanting a fun, short experience, but if you like to replay games, like myself, that's what Remnant 2 is built for. There are 3 main worlds you could travel to, filled with quests, secrets, puzzles, and their own stories. You might be thinking, why would you want to replay the same content? Well, Remnant 2 uses procedurally generated worlds. So although it's the same world, the layout, enemy encounters, and loot will be different. The game being so short helps players not to feel fatigued and can easily pick up a new run anytime they want to without it being a big commitment. Adventure mode is similar to the campaign, except it's used to change a specific world, not the whole entire campaign. I'm on my second playthrough and I'm seeing things I never saw my first time around. Now, as far as story goes, Remnant 2 really doesn't have much going on here. Like I said, each world has its own situation happening that is interesting enough to listen to. My favorite one being the world kind of inspired by Bloodborne. But the overall story is basically the world has a corruption and you must defeat the corruption so everyone doesn't die. The ending, in my personal opinion, was not satisfying at all. So, should you play Remnant 2? If you like traditional RPG mechanics and third-person shooting, then Remnant 2 is your game. Anyone looking for a deep story is not going to think much of Remnant 2 though. Remnant 2, although an RPG, is both good for people just looking for a shooter and someone wanting to deep dive into an RPG experience. The game does have co-op, but I played the campaign completely solo and I had a blast. I never felt it wasn't designed for solo play, which a lot of games do have an issue with. As for people looking for a looter shooter, Like I said, Remnant 2 will disappoint you. There is a big selection of weapons and secrets to find, which is more in line with traditional RPGs. I had a lot of fun with Remnant 2, and it's easy to pick up and play style. It's one of those games that even if you took a big break from it, you can easily jump back into it. So for anyone with limited time to game, I would recommend this one for you. Lastly, if you are a Souls fan, I would not recommend Remnant 2. Like guys, I get it, the game kind of has like a bonfire type system, but as a Souls player for many years, the comparison is so general to any RPG that anyone looking for that particular Souls gameplay, lore, or challenge will be disappointed. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. If you guys did, please leave a like, comment, please subscribe, and check out my new videos in the future. God bless and peace.